Yes, not long ago, I finally released the first part of my Thunderbolts retrospective after spending way too much time working on it in secret and generally not going outside, but the response has been extremely positive, which is nice. I don't think I've released anything with such consistently glowing reviews, and that does make me feel like I was right to pursue it this hard. So the first thing I want to do is thank literally everyone who saw it, everyone who enjoyed it, shared it, or supported me in making it. The cast, the artists, my friends and family. I stress the main reason it exists is everyone involved. Everyone who watched, who donated, who supported, they got this video to happen, and I don't take that lightly. So to all of you, thanks. Here it is. It exists. That's very weird to me, but it's because of you, so thank you. Might as well front load the video with this while I'm on the subject of support as well, but obviously there are still more episodes to go, and I could always do with ongoing help in making them. If you'd like to lend a hand, I have both a Ko-fi you can donate to, and a Patreon where I do a lot of behind the scenes content and special updates. And I'll of course be doing both on this video and future videos in particular. I've also started up an Instagram account and a TikTok because I feel like I should probably use everything possible to get my stuff seen. I apologize for taking a little bit of a break on putting out videos, but not only did I need it after trying to marathon the first episode to completion before the movie, which, didn't happen, but I also had a personal family tragedy I've updated on a while back that has made me a little disconnected from work. I'm doing okay. I've actually been doing a lot of stuff in the background anyway, but you know how these things are, so forgive me if it takes some time to get back in the spirit of actually uploading stuff with quite the force that I'm used to just yet. And I say that knowing that sometimes there are some long delays between uploads, let me tell you. Now, a lot of people have had questions about the video, either wanting to know why I did it, how I did it, what the hell is going on after the credits, and what I thought of the movie. So I answered a lot of those in some posts on my social media, and I figured it would be a good idea to collect the most frequently asked ones and put an official response together with me actually saying them out loud. So I've done that here, and let's get to it. When did you first start reading the Thunderbolts? A little background first. My interest in Marvel started when I was a kid, with both the 90s cartoons and my dad, who bought almost nothing but Marvel comics that he kept in these huge boxes under the bed, and I'd read those over and over and over. We're talking X-Men, Spider-Man, New Mutants, Daredevil, Punisher, Avengers, West Coast Avengers, Defenders, Hulk, Micronauts, Fantastic Four. It was all in there. Just literally any title you can think of, there was probably at least one issue of it in that box. When I started collecting for myself, I went for Spider-Man, whose story at the time was at the tail end of the Clone Saga. For the best, I think. A few years into reading, I'm watching him swing around, monologuing like he does, and suddenly, whoa, who's this? There was this one page with some mysterious guys watching him, talking like they had something to hide, and from that point on, I needed to know who those guys were. I didn't get my hands on their original story at the time, but I did hear about it a lot in various Marvel guidebooks and stuff I read online, looking at other people's experiences as well, and I immediately became a fan of the concept, especially as I was already way into villains in general. The idea there was a Marvel comic in any way dedicated to that specific corner of the world was really exciting to me. I started looking out for their appearances and after a point began collecting them whenever I could, before they finally reprinted the original run, which, when I read it, was everything I hoped it would be. What was your main reason or inspiration for choosing the Thunderbolts? The main reason is because not only was I just a really big fan, I was pretty sure nobody else was going to do this. I know people want me to talk about the X-Men or Spider-Man, but everyone and their mothers have covered these characters, and the only reason I chose the FF at the time was because I felt people had forgotten how great they were. That video, or videos like it, didn't exist online. Likewise, I felt nobody was doing the same for the Thunderbolts, and the few videos that did exist were doing it wrong. Like they drop the twist too fast, or they do a basic rundown, and it's like, no. You have to sell this story the way it was sold to you. Make people see what was special. It felt like other comic nerds always saw the Thunderbolts as this kind of peripheral title, whereas to me, it was this really important series, and I realized, it's gonna have to be me who makes the video. Okay, right, here I am. Another reason, however, was that I really wanted to push myself and contrast the FF video. That was about 4 heroes who represented a great sense of optimism, so the logical next step was to focus on bad guys who would have ethically messier, more troubling emotional arcs and conflicts, within a series that highlighted supervillainy from a human interest perspective, which is Busaic's specialty. It's a great story, and it's one that went emotionally against everything I was doing with the FF, so it seems like it would be a really good challenge as well. I mean, that's what draws me to this series. You look at the X-Men, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Hulk, they're all flawed or carry darkness in them, but they're also justified in feeling they've been unfairly treated and will probably do the right thing in the end. The Thunderbolts don't have that excuse. Maybe at one point they did, but they chose to hurt people, to be the worst of themselves, sometimes just because it was fun. And there's a level of self-destructiveness to that I find not only fascinating but relatable. The kind of irrational things I think we all sort of feel, but don't always verbalize, and obviously there's a trend in the stuff that I talk about where that all comes up. It's an uncomfortable truth I felt would make a great subject for a series like this, looking at how the culture shaped that story and really getting into the morality of it all, whether or not their actions were reversible. I'd like to think so. To an extent, I suppose I have to. The first episode? There's 4 more of these, that's the plan. After reading the original comic properly in the 2010s, I ended up collecting all of it to a certain point, and I realized there was another story here that covered almost my entire time as a fan of Marvel. I could see the series as something of a commentary on that era, born as a reaction to the continuity and helping in the end to shape it. And that was an exciting narrative I knew would have to take the form of a series to really get the scope of all of that across. I also realised coverage would go way beyond just the Thunderbolts comics. I spent the first year or so mapping out their journey and all the stories it tied into, and when I was sorting out what each video would cover, it became about where the story arcs felt like they naturally ended. This means every video has a different amount of actual Thunderbolts issues covered, but they all even out to a similar number of comics thanks to that additional material. So, even though the first video only has around 12 actual Thunderbolts issues, it also includes Zemo's history, the original appearances of the team, Under Siege, Iron Man's arc, lots of stuff I read and double-checked thoroughly. Nothing is in here, by chance. Later videos will have more Thunderbolts issues included, some may have less, but I hope you understand my methods as each one comes out, and I do plan on doing some proper reading lists as well. I can tell you now, the Epic Collections and Omnibuses are the current best way to go and read as much of this yourself as you possibly can. Of course, choosing the material from those comics was a very long process, as well as writing entire video essays around them. I did a lot of rewriting and rearranging of content, aiming to have all the series written and planned out before committing to any production, and that's between making other videos and dealing with all the stuff going on in my real life as well. Only then did I start to look for people who were going to help. What was your casting process? Casting happened once I'd selected all the scenes I wanted and written down all the parts included and how often they would appear in each episode. I had a lot of names from the FF video I wanted to work with again, but I also wanted to give some new guys a shot, so I was back scrolling through social media, looking up actors and their reels, and listening out for 3 key things: good quality recordings, unique voices, and killer acting skills. Bonus points were given to anyone with commercial reels, because if an actor can provide their normal speaking voice and sell an ad read without any wacky vocals, they can probably sell just about anything else.
I've never been afraid of missing my shot. I don't live life from the bench. I'm taking steps every day. Lace up, show up, and take the shot. Adidas.
Then the process becomes like Tetris. Stick with me on this. Sometimes I know which actor I want for which part, but when I'm not entirely certain, I'll pull out multiple names under a role and compare the reels, removing names as I pin down who I think fits the role best and saving others for later. Then I'll start looking at how to divide the smaller parts until everyone has around the same amount of material, which helps me keep the costs down, with actors recording multiple characters in a single session, but also allows them to really stretch their range as well. Scripts are formatted so they only have their relevant scenes and parts, which is a lot more manageable than just giving them the whole script with everything in it. You want to be able to move through the scenes fairly quickly. With all of that complete, I then make contact and see if they were available. I'll likely ask for an audition or a sample reading, just to see if I made the right choice, or if they decline, I'll go to an understudy, which didn't happen all that often, before moving on to recording. As before, I had a lot of actors record remotely and they'd send their stuff in by email, but this time I built up the nerve to ask for live sessions where I directed the actors myself, which I have to say was the best part of this whole thing. For around 2 hours or less, we'd work through the scenes, giving a little context beforehand, and they'd either go through each line one by one, giving 1 or 2 takes, with me offering suggestions if needed, or we'd read the entire scene together with me doing the other parts so they could bounce off of that. Whatever kept things feeling natural. Theatre has always been my first love, so I felt pretty comfortable working with the actors, learning their different approaches and adapting to help them deliver their best stuff. And part of the joy was hearing their reaction to the material and how they wanted to do it.
Do you have a problem with that, Doctor? I like to think he uses the doctor line as a sort of like, hangs it above your head like a Hippocratic Oath thing, like, do no harm and all that bullshit.
There were multiple moments reading the script where the actors would be reacting to just what's happening in the story, and that honestly was my favourite set of moments making this, because it's like, well, if you're reacting that way, then the audience is probably going to do the same. It was a true pleasure directing and working with some of the most friendly, dedicated, funny people out there, and connecting with some extremely impressive talents, and I cannot stress how grateful I am they gave their time to be a part of this silly little YouTube project. Every last name you see in those credits has such distinct talents, and many you haven't even heard properly yet, who have way bigger roles in later videos that I'm really excited for you to hear. I'd love the opportunity to work with any of these people again, some of whom are rightly going on to bigger and better stuff as we speak. Kind of insane. The good news is the vast majority of the series is already recorded, so you've got hard confirmation you'll be hearing more of them as this continues. I also loved when I described the Tetris analogy of the casting to Stephen Rigsby and he just went, "What? Do we disappear?" What inspired you for the motion comic segments? So from the beginning, the plan was to include original art. I felt that in talking about the culture and representing the comic's effect, I wanted to do it through mixed media, lots of different types of art that would get the ideas I wanted across more effectively. I had some industry pals willing to help and also raised money to commission art from other people I wanted to work with. And truthfully, I thought that would cover a couple of sequences and that everything else was going to be still panels again, like the FF video. Would have saved me a lot of work, but not money. I'd already spent so much on the voices, given I was recording everything first, and I realised I didn't have quite as much money to have the artists bring all the scenes to life that I saw in my head. Even more so, I was growing kind of dissatisfied with the FF video, mostly its look. I'm still proud I made it, and it's got a lot of good qualities that people still like with good reason, and you know, it's, I think the energy of it is great, but I feel like I was really overcompensating for the fact it wasn't animated. I keep trying to frame it cinematically, sometimes disrespecting the construction of the original panels, making it move too frantically, the cropping can be ugly. It just felt like I wanted to make it something it wasn't at points. It began to bother me even more blocking this one because I felt the actors were giving such brilliant performances that I couldn't capture with the still panels alone. It all came to a head during a sequence with the incredible Crystal Lee, who was playing Jolt, pleading for the Thunderbolts to help. She was so good, and I could see in my head how to convey it so clearly and get that moment of doubt in there. But the panel wasn't giving me enough to work with, so I threw up my hands and said, screw it, we animate. For those who don't know, I have an animation degree. I was a stop-motion animator, briefly. I do illustrate, but not very well. I'm better at talking about it than doing it, and my understanding of Photoshop is extremely basic. But I sort of forced myself to learn enough to be able to cut out the characters, redraw backgrounds, and then animate it inside of Premiere, purely because I know how that works. I knew whatever I did, I wanted it to look deliberately limited, so I took inspiration from some 90s and 2000s sources that did the same thing, with deliberately limited motion, so you understood it wasn't meant to be seen as fully animated. I also didn't want to have lots of extra tweening that you always get in motion comics. I kind of wanted to have a stop and start quality that was full of texture, give it a different look than expected. It was a grueling process that took maybe 4 to 5 solid months, mostly because I really didn't know what I was doing, but I learned on the job, I got faster and better at it as I discovered the shortcuts, and in the end I think it did what I was hoping to achieve without breaking the bank. I do, however, kind of hope I don't end up doing this all alone again for the next one, and I am looking at other programs like After Effects and Moho, because man, doing it all in Premiere, it really wasn't built for that. The biggest challenge was the motion comic stuff, but then it became about, well, if the main scenes are going to look like that, what about all the bits in between that I narrate? I had to figure out how to separate all these moments and keep it interesting, and I really wanted to up my game and do something that felt appropriate to all the specific sections. I knew whatever I settled on would become the visual language for all the other videos going forward as well, so that was a big consideration too. In the end, I decided the stuff where I talk about the history, the more typical video essay stuff, would have one kind of basic look, and then the actual in-comic descriptions would have either a comic image or relevant background, and try to showcase the panels as they were on the page. Respect the medium a little bit more than I feel the FF video ended up doing. Then, if a section was more immersive and styled in-universe, I'd try and give it the right look and feel, like you were watching a documentary or something. It was a language I figured out based on vibes more than anything else, but I'm really happy with how it looks in the final edit, and I'll be moving forward with that as we continue. The aim was always for the look of each episode to kind of change a little bit as we go and to evolve, so hopefully we do that. I also want to shout out all of the incredible artists who came together to embellish the work with their contributions of original art. So that's Rufus and Bonnie, Copy, Flops, MBT, Aaron, Cab Taxi, Grambo, and of course, Tenshi. These guys all rose to the challenge and delivered incredible pieces that spiced up the flavour of the whole video, so much more than it could have been otherwise. And you can be sure I'm looking for ways to put their talents to use in future episodes, as well as scouting for more folks where possible. I've had a few people ask to be part of this, and trust me, you're on a list. I've got a lot of you guys on the list. It's a good list, don't worry. Where can we find the awesome music? People asked me after the FF video to make a playlist for the music in that one, and I did, but unfortunately it was from other people's YouTube videos, and many of those are, gone. So this time around, I put all the music in the credits. The track, where it's from, who made it, hopefully enough clues so you guys can find whatever song you're after. All the tracks chosen are very deliberate, and the one I really wanted, No More Heroes, I was very lucky to make use of thanks to a new service called Licked, which allows you to pay a fee to license actual copyrighted songs. It's not a full library of everything ever, but there is a lot, and honestly, I've been advocating for this kind of service for years. So I'm not paid to say any of this, I'm just really pleased to find something that lets me do all of that. Oh, and everyone who loved the Misfits track, thank you, I see you. You're the real ones.
Fruit pies?
Okay, so, years ago, in the 70s and 80s, Marvel had a deal with Hostess Fruit Pies. They'd do print ads in the comics of the characters coming in and being like, ooh, these are some tasty pies. They come in apple and cherry flavors and they're real nice, and we beat the bad guy by eating the pies. There were a lot of crappy pie and cake brands at the time, as Gia very reliably informed me. In fact, they were pushed so heavily by comics, and were also probably terrible, it made them into a bit of a meme, in comic spaces anyway. So at one point, a fan decided he was going to make his own fruit pie parodies, made one about the Thunderbolts, and showed it at a convention to Kurt Busiek, who liked it so much he asked if he could use it officially, getting it properly drawn up and compensating the original authors. Very classy guy. I was always going to adapt it, but given I was doing so many different styles already, I wanted to push the boat out and get it animated, and with a really specific influence in mind. Dexter's Lab used to have a segment called The Justice Friends, which was based on DC's old cartoons, more often than not parodying Marvel characters, and they actually made their own Hostess Fruit Pie parody.
But there is one way to stop you.
No, not Justice Fruit Pie's a delicious treat you'd have to be crazy to hate.
I felt drawing from that would honour the joke and keep within the spirit of the comic's time period, and I luckily knew a guy who could do it, Aaron Kaiser. He's been an animator for a long-ass time, and was a fan of my stuff, and I'd filed away his portfolio for future collaboration purposes, so I'm really glad I did that. He rocks, and I got his name wrong in the credits because I used one of his alts, and I am extremely embarrassed about that, so here is my apology. Who are your favourite Thunderbolts? What's your favourite run? I'd love to answer these questions because I'm getting a lot of them, but if I do, I feel like I'm going to be giving too much away about later episodes. I'm really proud that I stuck to my guns and I didn't tell you what I was doing over the time I was making this, or even talking about the twist when I finally teased the series. I know all this info is very public, it's already out there, but I wanted you to experience things from the series as they were revealed here, even if you already knew, because dramatically I knew it would have more of an impact. And it's the same with all of my takes on the story. If you know what I think beforehand, I feel like there's too much second guessing the effectiveness in the final videos, and I'd rather the work spoke for itself first. Plus, it motivates me to keep making these so I can finally say all of this stuff publicly, and trust me, I'm very hard to sit on my opinions that long. I'm a mouthy guy. It's been interesting in the absence of that to see people offer their opinions on other runs, because I have to tell you, I'm not sure how my take on later stuff is going to be received. I know I'm lucky to have a solid start with Busiek, because he really is the GOAT, never misses, had a great story to begin with. You know, he's very uncontroversial, which is perhaps not true of the later runs, but I like to think I have a pretty good case to make for and against a lot of what's coming up, so stick around, and in some cases, maybe prepare to be a bit challenged. Ooh. What did you think of the movie? I really liked it. A lot. I seem to be one of the last comic book nerds who actually doesn't resent the MCU on principle. I remember it starting and liking how much closer the fidelity of the dialogue was to what I used to read, how it represented the core values of the characters, turning very niche ones into household names. And I think they were trying to make interesting, fun, pretty coherent films, the first 10 years being a fairly impressive feat. You guys have to understand, it felt different in a good way to what had come before, even if you liked some of what came before. Of course, as it went on, they got complacent, some movies sucked.
You must think I'm a piece of bread.
And then they started making more decisions after Infinity War that just didn't work, making way too much stuff too quickly, some of it pretty unwatchable. As a result, when they announced this, I had low expectations. Didn't like the lineup, didn't like what they were doing with Valentina, even as a fan of JLD, and I really wanted to get my video out before this became what the title meant to wider pop culture. But despite working hard, I missed the deadline, accepted defeat, booked my tickets, and yeah, I thought they did an excellent job.
There's Brezhnev. Those guys with the little waves. Get out of my way.
First and foremost, it's just a great film. Nicely written, wonderfully cast, and actually given an understated style, all used to tell a strong story, taking a bunch of mercenary characters from recent MCU history who were all less than clean, and forcing them into a situation where they have to save lives. There's a weirdness to it I like, a lot of left-field choices and music and clever touches that came forward even more on a second watch. Not an accident that their musical theme is like an upside-down version of the Avengers. What really sells it is the core thematic pitch everything is working around, redemption. Not just for things you've done to others, but what you feel you've done to yourself, the very real struggles of isolation and hopelessness you experience as your mistakes pile up. And it used these disparate characters to create a very cohesive look at how depression manifests, and potentially how it can be overcome. Of course I like this, I've been there. I love Psychonauts. Now, this isn't the premise of the comic, which is a banger, but there is a lot here that parallels the comic, in ways I thought were compelling, and not working against the source material.
We're all alone. All of us.
Jake Schreier is a cool guy, doesn't seem like he's doing this by the numbers, he's got a case to state, and saw something in the existing state of the MCU that the Thunderbolts concept could benefit, in a way the original story might not have done in this position.
But I do feel like in an odd way, like our ending essentially honors that idea, which is like they end up in that position, and now maybe they're not the masters of evil, but they are people that really probably don't belong in this tower, maybe could earn that right, but it's going to be an uncomfortable fit.
Really, if they were going to do the villain thing, they should have done it way sooner. The cast is largely made up of the MCU's leftovers, characters who had potential in other films but maybe didn't get the story they felt they deserved, and joining them together here finally lets them get a shot at being part of something greater than they were alone, that they can actually gain great purpose and direction over their lives, not dissimilar to the team from the original story at all. The idea of feeling irredeemable and feeding into the dark thoughts that cause you to do bad things, villains or not, that's the Thunderbolts at their heart.
All I do is sit and look at my phone and think of all the terrible things that I've done, and then I go to work and then I drink, and then I come home to no one, and I sit and I think about all the terrible things I've done again and again, and I go crazy.
We all have things that we regret.
No, but I have so many.
And it kind of reflects the current MCU, the idea of going through the motions, seeing yourself as part of a routine role that's suddenly encouraged to change and do something interesting. To me, that sends a message about how the franchise feels about itself and might want to move forward, not getting stuck in a self-destructive rut that it's been in. We're not just redeeming the characters in the story, we're redeeming the potential of everything. Like, they even fixed my problems with Valentina. In all her other appearances, she's just been this kind of generically incompetent leader whose jokes all fell flat, but they finally figured out what her thing was by just making her Selena Meyer.
Does this look nurturing enough?
That one cut happened at the beginning.
So you don't mind if this committee continues this investigation?
Oh, of course not. Shit.
And I went, oh, thank God, we've got something. We're cooking now. We're going to be fine. She's not a one-note character. She's funny and pathetic and even a little sinister, and I like the idea of her being an anti-Nick Fury. Kind of honors their tricky relationship in the source.
You're brought up to believe that there's a good guy and a bad guy. But then eventually you come to realize that there's a bad guy and a worse guy and nothing else.
And sometimes the direct history is honoured as well. Something I figured would be the case when I saw that every panel chosen for the opening logo animation was in fact from the comics, related to the characters in the film, and it had to be done again. We can't let this honour rest on just X-Men 3.
I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Each of the cast has been a Thunderbolt or adjacent to them at some point in the comics' lifespan. I would argue Black Widow is in many ways an original Thunderbolt, one of the first of many Marvel villains who became a hero and who has a huge moment in the original story. It just makes sense for any version of her to be a part of this. Mel is the only direct lift from the original group, in this film taking a role not dissimilar to Jolt, a young person at a junior level wanting to do good in a bad scenario. Like classic Mel though, she's trying to hide behind the people in charge and struggling with her loyalties. I thought that was really well observed. Geraldine Viswanthanan does a great job, and I'm looking forward to seeing if she gets to expand on the role. Granted, they clearly didn't check in on Mel being Jewish, but I know they're probably not going to have the capacity to make something of that, and it's just how it is. And that's okay, we got that covered. And the most direct comparison, Valentina. While I'm sad to not see Zemo in the movie, given it seemed they were really building up to it, honestly, I thought this was going to be him. Guess not. They did, however, give Valentina his role, and I think she's very effective in that position. She manipulated a group she felt nobody would miss. She took a dangerously unstable individual and slapped an all-American superhero outfit on him, in an effort to fool the public. Imagine making that connection, huh? And she even reveals something huge about the team's true identity at the very end of the story rather than the beginning. It almost feels like watching the original in reverse. I really like that. It was always going to be hard to sell the original narrative within the shape of the MCU for so many reasons, so I'm glad they found a meaningful way to make this work, and that it even resonates with someone like me, who clearly loves the source material quite a bit, I think is a good thing, and some of the writers of the comics clearly feel the same. They also made a few creative decisions fairly close to things I wanted to do in telling the story, which took me aback a little bit, somewhat. Real parallel thinking going on here. The end credits montage being the Thunderbolts getting turned into commercialized propaganda to win over the public. Kinda planned that years ago. The movie opening on this line,
"There's something wrong with me."
And my video always having had this line near the end. That you've always felt wrong, somehow. And of course the big one, which I'm going to set aside for just a moment if you don't mind. I stress a lot of this stuff I really wasn't trying to copy, which is why I really wanted my video out before this, but while I was sad not to get first public credit for a lot of these ideas, I still really like that they did it. If we're doing the same things, it means we're on the same wavelength when it comes to the source, and we can both be doing that while telling very different iterations of the story, which is great. Can absolutely live with that. I mean, I am just telling the story of the comic, I'm not doing anything too special. And hey, I've always thought John Walker was interesting. A fascinatingly complicated character, and it's wild to see such a good rep of him on screen. A man with a decent heart, completely unable to get out of his own way. That's John, alright. You try to tell me he was going to be in a film in like 2002, I'd have probably cried, because that would make you a scary time traveler in my house, and I was like 10. I've seen a few people mad they didn't do the original story, and yeah, I'd have loved to see that, like I said. I certainly know how I'd do it. But you know, when I look at a lot of complaints against things like this, I then look at like the bios and, you know, of all these people who get wound up about comic accuracy, and you're all in your tweens and 20s, and I can't help but think you might be getting a little bit ahead of yourselves. I don't know. There's always things from the comics I would like to see done, but I think a wide variety of accurate and non-accurate takes is just so healthy, as long as the changes feel purposeful. I said this in my Gadget video, it's got to be about purpose. What really matters is the movies being any good, and in this case, they should hold on to the energy of this regardless of how I would have done it. It's been, what can I say? It's been a very good year for superhero movies. A very good year. Very good. Yeah, I'll talk about it eventually, don't worry. How did you come up with mixing the Thunderbolts with the Sentry? God, okay, so... Okay, here we go. So, I promise you this is all true. I came up with this connection myself before I saw the movie, before I heard the rumors, 4 years ago. When I was researching and planning this whole series out, the one guy who kept coming up in the timeline was the Sentry. As a teenager, I never liked the character. I didn't get him. But after reading all of his appearances from the start, I'm like, you know, the Danny DeVito meme, I'm a full Sentry convert. A brilliant character, in my view, exploring the archetypal superhero, or more accurately, the need to be one. I realized this guy was not only a parallel to everything that was happening to this era of comics, he was a parallel to the Thunderbolts story, and there's a very clear and obvious point where it all connects. What sealed the deal on making him so prominent was reading Age of the Sentry, not only set at the earliest point in his life, but framed as a bedtime story told by Reed Richards, and that, you know, that just sold it to me. To tell his story as part of the first episode, as a way to hand off the series from the Fantastic Four to this, and to interweave him through the series, it just all sort of clicked as how I needed to do this. Abigail was the one who said it best. She said she loved that it had a Princess Bride feel, and she's so right for that. I've seen a few people split on my use of him, some not seeing the connection and others really getting it, and both of those reactions are good as far as I'm concerned. I purposefully wanted it to be fairly ambiguous. I'm not ready to tell you everything about him and why I've put him here yet, because we're still building this story, but I think if you saw the film, or if you know his thing, you can probably gather a couple of ideas that honestly, I thought I was too obvious with.
You are not a hero.
I have to say, when I came up with this, I was like, oh, you know, amazing, nobody's ever thought to connect these two, I'm a genius, and my brain is huge. But then, 2 years in, when I was at the D23 Expo waiting for the Marvel movie announcements, in the wrong costume, they announced the film was entering production and who they'd cast. Slowly, after that, reports started to come in about the Sentry being in it too, and I hit my internal panic button. I was like, oh damn it, I thought I had this amazing hook that set me apart from everyone else, and instead, someone else has gone ahead and had the same bloody idea on a multi-million-dollar stage, probably for the same reasons, especially when I found out they actually brought his original creator aboard, Paul Jenkins, to help shape this story. Very funny that the original Thunderbolts writers weren't involved while he was, but he has a very good contract, and honestly, I'm glad and baffled we have such a direct recreation of the character, and John Walker. How did any of that happen? Without giving too much away, yes, the movie does kind of speedrun the Sentry mythology, really well, I might add, and messes with the fact that I chose to play the long game. Some people have even accused me of only making the connection because of the film, and again, there's proof in the trailers I made of my plans, but I'll sadly never publicly be the first to outright make the claim of linking these two so closely together. All I ask is that you stick with me anyway. While we'll be treading some of the same ground, there's still more to be told the movie wasn't able to get into about his history, and even some surprises planned for where he's heading and how we're going to tell that. So yeah, it'll all make sense eventually, even if my brain isn't that big after all. Oh well. Is Tom Schalk voicing who I think he's voicing? So the man at the end of the video is voiced by Tom Schalk. I can't tell you who he's playing yet, that'll take the fun out of it, but here's what I will say. I wrote that sequence based on a moment from a comic, and both Tom and Maya Harlap, who played the little boy, delivered it perfectly. It's an important scene, one that sort of represents a door that was opened by the state of comics in the 90s, and is relevant to the actions of the Thunderbolts in a way, and it's important that it didn't happen the way that it did in the original source. This is where it gets really hard to explain my method on this, because this is all one big story, and I stress that everything I choose to tell you or do is extremely deliberate and about that one story. So hopefully this will mean even more later on. Tom has a big role in this series, and he is a phenomenal actor and human being, so, please stick with me. I really want to get his performance on the screen and out to you guys, because it's just incredible. You gotta see it. You gotta. Are you doing any other videos? After this, I do need to continue working on the next couple of episodes, but the good news is so much has already been done. There are near final drafts of every episode. 90% of every episode's dialogue is recorded, which is 100% of episodes 2 and 4. All of the episode 2 dialogue is in the timeline, and 3 isn't that far behind. It's still going to take time, absolutely, but I'm also talking with friends who can help me streamline the process, as well as looking into new methods to make things easier, and hell, maybe bring some more people aboard to help. That would really speed things up tremendously. Honestly, multiple people helping draw or animate multiple low-budget scenes, they'd be done way faster. But can I pay more people to do that right now? Oh no. The hard truth right now is the video has not been a runaway hit. Not in the way Frasier was. So I should probably make a few more videos in between, which I kind of wanted to do anyway. After this mighty beast of a project, that's honestly not too strenuous. And there's a lot I've already drafted, even if I know it's probably going to mess with my subscribers and current place in the algorithm, but this is how I do it. This is how it's always been. Ain't no social media team here. This is just me. Are there any other Marvel, DC, or indie titles you enjoy enough to try and do videos like this about? Gosh, I don't know if I can do that, bro. As much as I like making videos, it takes so much time. I'm careful with my words, I overthink, I try and perfect everything, and not always for much financial reward compared to some channels. My eyesight is still a problem, if you remember that. My health is getting better than it's been because it was not great while I was making this. Same for my social life. I'm in my early 30s and I haven't achieved a lot of the things that I still want to do and I need to start looking into again. I can feel the midlife crisis chundling down the track towards me, okay? I've still got some big video essays left in me, but I'm afraid this might be my last huge artistic fan-related project because I don't know how much more hard time I can dedicate to things that I don't own. I really want to do some original things or be in other people's original things because I just want to be a part of some art, you know? Something creative that will go beyond me. I know it's something that I've always wanted, and I know if I don't do it, it's gonna really bite me in the ass later, so I think this series is gonna be it for big Marvel videos. I haven't peaked yet, but I know I'm going to. But here's the thing about this series, it covers so much. We go through an obscene amount of Marvel lore and so many characters. I think you'll be fairly satisfied with how many people show up and what I have to say about them. I hope. Everything that kind of matters to me, at least. But it'd be nice to be a part of something else, like these stories someday, right? Yeah, right. How does this not have more views? You know, I'm running out of good answers to that question. I know lots of YouTubers have the same thing said to them by their fans. You're great, you deserve more views, you should be more well known, and I know people mean it when they say that, but I feel it'd be fairly conceited of me to just say, oh yeah, you're right, I'm the best and I deserve more. Something about it doesn't feel right, especially when I keep looking back on stuff and going, oh, I could have done that better, which drives the newer stuff forward. I know what makes for truly banger YouTube material, right? I'm not under any illusions that I'm on the level or consistency or, just pure attraction of these other guys. I get it, weird voice, very anal hobbies and wordy videos. It's a lot easier to listen to like a Kevin or a Sophia. You know where she raises her voice to suggest the sentence hasn't finished yet, but then drops it at the end to prove that it has. Kids love it. I watch it too. What do you want? She's good at what she does. But increasingly, the way people have said this to me has changed. It's more intense. It's, wait, why do you not have more views? Why is this video attached to a channel under 100k? Why are you not more well known? This actually doesn't make sense. And I'm starting to feel this means I must be doing something actively wrong. I know I haven't uploaded as frequently as I'd like, that's a problem. I know I don't stick to a niche because I talk about everything, that's a problem. I'm often quite critical of other YouTubers' work. That's why my work comes out the way it does, because I'm trying to not do that necessarily, and I sometimes actively avoid what a lot of other people are doing, because I don't want to develop bad feelings about other people and get mad about it, so that's absolutely a problem. But those things aren't always tied to how well the videos are received or found these days, so what's going on? And to make matters worse, you look at some of the subs of the people following me. I'm not going to embarrass anyone by naming names, but there are some crazy numbers here. People I'm not mutuals with, and at a certain point I have to ask, if those people think I'm good at that level, then what the hell does that make my level? Why aren't the numbers adding up? Because if they did, not only would this all be a lot easier, I could get things in my life moving a lot faster. I don't know, it is frustrating to feel like you're doing great work and just not see it reflected in the numbers or the conversation online, and not know when that's going to change. A Doctor Doom parody account debuted and sailed right past me to 100k subs in a matter of months, all on the back of being a joke, while I've taken nearly a decade to crawl to 90k, so you might see why I'm finding things a little troubling at the moment when it comes to what I really want to do with my life next. Because yeah, people say I'm good at the YouTube thing, but the YouTube thing isn't exactly saying that I'm doing well enough. So it's like, do I stop? Do I keep going? What? Now, I don't allow myself to vent about this stuff publicly, usually, because I find it a bit crass, and, you know, there's so many different ways that it can be taken. But I'm only doing it now to demonstrate, you know, kind of where my mindset is at, why I'm not really pumping this stuff out on the regular, because I don't necessarily have the means to do it at the level you've been seeing that consistently. It's a reminder that this is, no matter what your skill, just as fickle a business as anything else, and there are no guarantees or promises that being good is enough. Sometimes you just have to be extremely savvy at social media or say something people really want to hear in that moment, and I've never been very good at that. But otherwise, you know, I'm happy that the video just exists. It's so clear in my mind, and I love that people responded to it the way that I hoped they would, and that they enjoyed it as much as I wanted them to. So it still feels like a massive achievement for it to be out there. I wish it was happening sooner, but, you know, we are where we are. Again, that's all thanks to my supporters, my collaborators. They're all the reason that this came out as well as it did, and I want to continue to repay them for that kindness by completing the rest of the series. So I'm not going to stop doing that. I need to see the series done. I just hope that I can do it before I'm at an age where I feel like I really shouldn't be doing it anymore. It's been a long road. I don't want it to take as long as it has so far, but I hope you'll stick around regardless to see where we're headed. The Thunderbolts aren't heroes after that first episode, and there's so much they're going to explore, for better and for worse. So until then, real frantic ones, get ready for the next installment in the B saga of big videos. That's right, it's Desperate Housewives time, yeah boy.